Guys, my name's Emmanuel and I hope you're having a great week. Today's video is a special one, guys. I'll be showing you my top 3 growth stocks for June 2020 and also the metrics which I used to select them. Growth stocks are companies that purely focus on reinvesting its earnings back into the company with the aim to further accelerate growth. The trade-off is the majority do not pay their shareholders a dividends, guys. However, these companies typically grow at a much faster rate than companies that do pay a dividends. So when you invest in these companies, your focus should be solely on capital appreciation, okay? Capital appreciation over the next 5 to 10 years. So these 3 stocks had to hit my criteria. My criteria meaning I stole it from the book One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. And if you haven't got this book, guys, it's an incredible book. I highly recommend it if you're serious about investing. And the link to the book is in the description below. But Peter made on average 29% annual returns from 1977 to 1920. So not a bad investor to try and emulate. But Peter categorized these companies as fast growers. And here's the criteria that he laid out in his book. Number 1, the company has to have had a previous revenue growth rate of over 20%. You can check this by visiting Seeking Alpha, which we'll show you later on in the video. Number 2, the company has to have a strong balance sheet, guys. We're talking strong assets versus liabilities. We're looking at the current ratios. We're looking at increasing stockholder equity. Again, you can check all of this information on Yahoo Finance, which again, I will show you as we go on in the video. Number 3, the company's earnings has to demonstrate consistent growth year on year. Number 4, the company's main product or service has to be reusable. So the customers have to continue to use the product or service over and over again. So for example, like Gillette and razor blades. Number 5, the company must still have room for growth. So are there expansion plans going on for the company? Number 6, the company has to have had duplicated itself and is operational in more than one city, town, or country. And number 7, the company has to have had positive free cash flow, which is also grown year on year. That's the criteria, guys. That's the challenge that's been set. And here are my top 3 stocks that I found all met this criteria.
Okay, guys, so the first growth company that we're looking at today is Square, ticker symbol SQ. And if you're not familiar with Square, they are a POS, which stands for point of sales, and payment portal solution. Okay, so pretty much they combine their software with their hardware to enable sellers or merchants to turn their mobile devices or computing devices into a payment solution. So essentially, as you can take a look here, this is their hardware device, this white square here, and the sellers will have to download the software. And once they download the software, they enter the amount of the product or the service, and it enables the customer or the client to pay with their normal Visa or MasterCard chip card. So that's pretty much how they operate in a nutshell. How they generate the revenue, of course, they charge commission per transaction. And from my recent research, you can see that they charge 2.75% per swipe, or 3.75% plus 15 cents for manually typed transactions, okay? And then they also do charge a subscription fee for their software. So that's how they generate their revenue. And also take a look at their main competitors. In Europe, we have a company called iZettle, which pretty much function the exact same way as Square, but they don't have as much popularity as Square. PayPal here also have their own POS system, and a company called Clover as well, I found, actually have a POS, but none of them really have the type of popularity as Square does. So this is the criteria that we have set, guys, and pretty much Square hits all of the criteria on the head. So let's take a look at their revenue growth rate. And as you can see here, guys, on Seeking Alpha, Square's revenue growth rate is currently sitting at 43.09% year-on-year growth, which is incredible. And you can visit macro trends, and it actually puts it into perspective. It gives you a graph, and this is an incredible growth from Square. They're a relatively new company, but since 2015, they've been growing their revenue rate year on year. So the next criteria is, has Square increased their earnings year on year? And this is a bit of a tricky one. So Square are a new company. So with most new companies, when they start out, they start out with a loss. And taking a look at their net income, you can see Square was no different. But the difference is, year on year, their earnings or their losses has been decreasing until 2019. They actually turned a profit. So looking at this trend, I don't see why it's going to decrease. Even with the current pandemic, people are still using their cards. People are still making the transactions. So Square are still generating revenue. So I expect this revenue to continue growing. So I'm going to give that a yes on earnings. The next criteria was, does Square have a strong balance sheet? And for balance sheet information, I like to look at Yahoo Finance. So remember, guys, all of these numbers are in thousands. So the numbers you see here, you would have to times it by 1,000. So currently, Square have a 2.2 billion cash position, which is incredible because you have to compare the cash to the long-term debt, and their long-term debt is sitting at 938 million. So they have more than enough cash to weather their long-term debt obligations. Looking at the short term, their current assets are sitting at 3.2 billion, and their current liabilities is sitting at 1.6 billion, which gives it a current ratio of around about 1.68. And if you've watched my previous videos, I always prefer for the current ratio to be at 1 or higher. So this is a good, healthy balance sheet. Lastly, I always like to take a look at their stockholder equity, and as you can see here, it's grown quite significantly year on year. And if you're not familiar with a stockholder equity, guys, it pretty much is an indication for the growth rate of the assets versus the liabilities. And with an increase in the numbers, it's an indicator that the assets are growing faster than the liabilities. So I would say yes, they do have a strong balance sheet. Next criteria, does the company have positive free cash flow? Again, to find this out on Yahoo Finance, you click on their cash flow tab. Scroll down to their free cash flow, and as you can see here, they have had positive free cash flow, which has actually been growing year on year. So this company is a solid company. So the next criteria was, is there still room for growth? What are their current expansion plans? And to find that out, guys, I went to the annual report and took a look at their shareholders letter. And as you can see here, as a result of the actual crisis going on, they've actually accelerated their expansion plan, which was to create an online store for their merchants or sellers to use and process transactions quicker. So I think this is quite brilliant of them, because you've got companies like Shopify that are growing with their online stores. And I think this is a good position and a good move for Square to take. So yes, they have been expanding. So the next criteria was, has the company duplicated itself in more than one city or country? And on their website here, you can see they've set up locations in the United States, Canada, Japan, Australia, United Kingdom, and also Ireland. So they have been expanding. They are in multiple countries. I know you can use Square in the United Kingdom. So that's brilliant. So yes, they are expanding. So we can give that a yes. And finally, is the company's products and service reusable? I mean, the indicator for that really is looking at their growing revenue. Their merchants and small businesses have been growing year on year. And also, a Reuters article suggests that, it says here that they're attracting larger merchants, not just the small businesses now. So that's a sign of continued growth for Square, and that's why they're number one on my growth stock list.
All right, guys, so I quickly want to segue here for a minute and say that most of these companies have already returned back to their pre-virus prices. So don't be put off by the fact that you missed out on the crash. And remember, guys, we are not traders, we are investors, okay? So our goal isn't to buy it at one price today and sell it at another price within the next few minutes or hours or days, okay? So when we invest, we are taking the position of a business owner, which means we are in it for the long run.
And I have to admit, guys, this initially surprised me. With Adobe, ticker symbol ADBE. I use the software Lightroom and Photoshop pretty much every day. I have a photography business. but I never realized how massive their company is, you know. So if you're not familiar with Adobe, they enable individuals, creatives, small, medium, large businesses to create, publish, promote, and monetize their digital content. Okay, so they use Creative Cloud, that's their main bread and butter, which is a subscription service that allows customers to download and access the latest versions of its creative products. So these two logos are pretty much renowned within the world of creatives. It's Lightroom. You have Adobe Photoshop. Also, you have Premiere Pro, which is for video editing, and many other products and services available within their Creative Cloud. So, how do they generate their revenue? First of all, they take money from me every month, I can tell you that. They have a monthly subscription service, which you have to pay for the latest updates to Lightroom and Photoshop. Or you could just pay for the software outright and you get one version. So they make money that way essentially. And it's not just Photoshop or Lightroom. They do have Premiere Pro, like I've mentioned, and they do have other softwares that you can use and download for business purposes. In terms of competitors, I mean, you've got Capture One and Shutterstock. To be honest, guys, in terms of the creative industry, I don't see any competitors for Adobe, especially in the photo editing space. Now, again, this was the growth stock criteria that we learned from Peter Lynch's One Up on Wall Street, and Adobe hit all of these criteria. So let's take a look. Criteria one was revenue growth rate, and on Seeking Alpha, you can see here the revenue growth year on year is sitting at 22.08%, which is above our 20% growth rate. So that's a check mark. And again, guys, you can look at their revenue year on year growth rate from 2013 up to 2019, and that's just a nice, beautiful upward trend. The next criteria was, has the earnings increased year on year? And then again, guys, looking at their net income chart, you can see nice, consistent growth essentially from 2014 to now. Next, we're going to take a look at their balance sheet, and we want to answer the question whether they have a strong balance sheet. And again, to look at their balance sheet, we are looking at Yahoo Finance. Their total cash position, wow, sits at 4.1 billion versus their long-term debt, which is 988 million. So more than enough cash to weather the storm. And there's no signs of this company going bankrupt anytime soon. Their current assets sitting at 6.4 billion, and their total current liabilities is sitting at 8 billion. So, but with their current cash position, I'm not even concerned about that. It gives it a current ratio of 0.79. So from a current ratio point of view, they are below the 1 mark, so not too far off. But judging from their total cash position versus their long-term debt is something I'm not necessarily worried about. And lastly, guys, we look at the stockholder equity, and again, a nice, beautiful upward trend. It is positive, and it has been growing year on year. So next criteria, guys, does the company have positive free cash flow? And again, on Yahoo Finance, you simply have to scroll down and look at their cash flow, and it has been growing year on year, and it has been positive. So I would say this company, in terms of their financial position, they've got a strong balance sheet, strong free cash flow. Next criteria, is there still room for growth? Do they have any expansion plans? And in terms of the expansion plans, I was reading an article from Adobe's vice president, which pretty much announced an AI toolbox for experience platforms. So in terms of integration of what they've currently got on Creative Cloud, having the analytics to back up the productivity and the insight for all the users, I think is a step in the right direction. And it's also a sign of innovation from this company, so we're going to give it a tick. Criteria 6, has the company duplicated itself? And I can tell you that in terms of photography, Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop is global. It's everywhere. But don't take my word for it. Look at their offices where they're based. This is in America. You can scroll all the way down there in Asia. They've got offices in New Zealand, Australia, even in Europe. I mean, in terms of their global footprint, it's as big as it gets, guys. So solid company, solid location. And lastly, is the company's product service reusable? Absolutely. They barely have any competition. For myself, I have a photography business. We only use Lightroom and Photoshop. So, and we continue to use their software every year, and it keeps on getting better. So, Adobe is a solid growth stock. Yes, all right, guys. So our third and final growth company is Amazon. Ticker symbol AMZN, and I've given it hashtag wonderful business. Guys, I honestly don't think you can talk about growth stocks without mentioning Amazon. These guys are the kings, e-commerce giants. They pretty much sell merchandise, contents purchased for resale from third-party sellers, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've probably ordered something from Amazon. They're manufacturers as well, so the company produces and sells their own e-products, so Kindle, Fire tablets, Fire TVs, Ring doorbells, and Echo. I've got quite a few Ring doorbells myself. Not only that, they're also publishers, so they provide Kindle Direct Publishing, which allows independent authors and publishers to make their own books available on the Kindle store. And not only that, they have an AWS service, which is a cloud storage based business. The company provides compute storage, database, and other AWS services. Forgot an E there. Amazon Prime as well, which again I'm a member. It's a membership program. It provides free shipping, and also with Amazon Prime, you actually get their movie streaming, which isn't as good as Netflix, but still decent. Still decent. And they also now expanded into Amazon advertising, which I will touch on a bit later. Okay, so when I was reading through the annual reports, I just thought this was important to include in the in my presentation today. So their vision of management of vision, pretty much of Jeff Bezos, is they seek to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. Earth, not just America or Europe, the whole Earth. And the principles, they pretty much are customer obsessed, passion for invention, commitment to operational excellence, and long term thinking. I mean, guys, as an investor, this is just music to my ears, all right? And how do they generate their revenue? Multiple streams. They have the online and physical retail stores, which is generating 55% of their revenue. Third party seller fees that they charge makes 19% of their revenue. Prime's subscription services is at 7%. AWS, which is at 14% of the revenue. And their recently new expansion project into the advertising space, which is their fastest growing revenue stream, is right now responsible for 5% of their revenue. Now, in terms of competitors, I mean, who isn't competing with Amazon at this stage? on a retail scale, you've got Walmart and Alibaba, the two biggest competitors. On the AWS side of the business, they're competing with Google, Microsoft Azure. On the advertising space, they're competing with Facebook, Google. I mean, Amazon just have no respect, in my opinion. And as you can see, I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos. I'm a big fan of the company. All right, guys, so we're going to put them to the test. And as you can probably see here, they've hit pretty much all the criteria. But let's go through it one by one. First of all, their revenue growth rate. Revenue growth rate, guys, has no surprise. It's sitting at 22.66%. And also looking at their revenue trend. That's just beautiful, guys. I mean, look at that from 2013 all the way to 2019, just year on year revenue growth. And there's no signs of it slowing down, especially now that they're tapping into the advertising space. I think they can give Facebook and Google a real run for their money. Next criteria is their earnings. Has it increased? I mean, and you guessed it, guys. Just look at their revenue growth as well. They did take a bit of a dip, though, in 2014, which probably could have been a good moment to get in. But 2015 onwards, as you can see, massive growth in their net income and their earnings. Does the company have a strong balance sheet, which is quite interesting? Guys, it should come as no surprise. Again, we want to look at their total cash position versus their long-term debt. Total cash is sitting at a whopping 55 billion, and their long-term debt is actually at 23 billion. So again, enough cash to weather their long-term debts. Looking at their current responsibilities with their current assets, 96 billion in terms of total current assets versus total current liabilities, which is actually quite high, to be fair. It's sitting at 87 billion. So that will give it a current ratio of just over 1, I think 1.10. And again, guys, the next step is their stockholder equity. Again, beautiful trend. It's followed the same trend as Adobe and as Square. Year-on-year growth, which is it's amazing. Moving on, guys, free cash flow. Again, Amazon hits the criteria on their head. Well, they've actually taken a dip in their free cash flow as from 2018 to 2019, but it is still positive and it has shown year-on-year growth. Is there still room for expansion? I mean, Amazon, they want it all, don't they? They just want a monopoly. But in terms of expansion plans, yes. An article with Investopedia, they emphasize their expansion into the advertising space, where it will be competing with Facebook, and Alphabet Inc. And majority of Facebook's revenues is from advertising. And if Amazon really do come and make a stamp on that industry, I think there's a lot of revenue to be had there for Amazon. So if I were Facebook and if I was Google, I would be nervous right about now. Has the company duplicated itself? I mean, of course, Amazon's everywhere. I'm not going to waste any time on that, guys. Amazon is everywhere. Amazon is massive in the UK, it's massive in the US, in Europe. Yeah, we're just going to move on. They just smashed that criteria out of the park. And is the company's product or service reusable? Of course. Everybody uses Amazon, especially during the global lockdown. They've seen an increase in usage. So again, I'm not going to waste too much time on that. They are reusable. Everyone continues to use them. And I just think they're going to grow from strength to strength. Okay, guys. So if you wanted to pick up a share of Square, you can get it on trading212. And it will cost you to buy one share. It will cost you £69.55. And also, guys, if you wanted to pick up a share of Adobe, you just type in the ticker symbol ADBE on trading212. And one share of Adobe will cost you £305.96. And lastly, guys, Amazon. If you want to pick up a share at Amazon, you type in the ticker symbol AMZN. And one share of Amazon will cost you 1,951 pence. Okay, guys, but remember, trading212 have fractional shares. So all you have to do, rather than the number of shares, if you don't want to spend £1,951 to buy a share of Amazon, if you click the drop down here and click on value, and if let's say you had only £100 to invest, £100 will buy you 0.05 shares of Amazon, and you can slowly start to build your Amazon position that way. So don't be put off by the share price. You can own a piece of the share. Even if you wanted to invest a fiver, a fiver will get you 0.071 shares of Square. So that's the beauty of trading212 and their fractional shares.
It was a challenge, guys, getting these three stocks. I mean, a lot of other companies were close but didn't hit all of the criteria. Some of the honorable mention are the likes of Facebook. They came very close, especially hit on revenue. You've got the likes of Tesla, you've got Nvidia, and you've also got Alphabet Inc., which is Google. All came close but missed one or two of the criteria. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Don't forget to smash the like button. Also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you want to learn more from this channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on Saturday. Peace.